Hi everyone, my name is Steph. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to some Australian book recommendations. So every year for the last couple of years I have filmed one of these, usually as part of the Australian Readathon, which didn't happen this year because of timing and commitments and things from all of the hosts. If you've not seen one of these videos, as I've said, I've got 3 of them, and essentially they are a collection of all of the Australian authors and books that I have read in the last 12 months that I just kind of compile. Now, this video has just under 100 book recommendations, so I'm not actually going to talk specifics about each book, but I will give you a general feeling for them. So we have junior and middle fiction books, young adult books, romance, some other adult titles, there's not many this year, Australian First Nations books, and some non-fiction and poetry included. Essentially, we'll go through, I'll let you know kind of the subgenre for each category, if it's a queer title, if it's a First Nations title, etc. Buckle in, get a drink. Hopefully this won't be too long. And it's kind of just a little bit of a quick rec for those people who are looking for some more Australian books to read. Alrighty, so we're going to start with junior and middle fiction. First up, there is the Wheeler the Corey Warrior series, which I've just recently concluded. So these are books 4 and 5 in the series. I've talked about the series in other videos. Incredible First Nations middle fiction series. Well worth checking out. Lots of cultural references. It's a great adventure story, lots of found family, lots of fantastical elements that really tie in with Indigenous culture. Similarly, Yarn Quest is also a First Nations. This is more of a junior fiction series. Wheeler is more of a middle fiction series that takes First Nations storytelling and history and culture and crafts some really great stories for kids who are just getting into early chapter books. The Kimberley Kickers series by Carl Merrison and Heikia Hustler. This one is Crystal Kicks to Win. It's the second book in the series. I've just found out there's a third one that I haven't read yet, which I need to get onto. But these are stories of real Indigenous Australians who are playing footy, and they are honestly fantastic, great sports chapter books to include in collections and are kind of like narrative biographies of these individuals. Then you have Fluff Mess Up by Matt Stanton. This is a graphic novel from memory, and it is pretty funny and fun, and it's one of those kind of early books that have a lot of humor in it to get kids reading. The Cockatoo Crew series by Laura Innick is a really great early chapter book series about children coming to Australia and learning English for the first time at an English language school. So you have Elif's Itchy Palm and Sambu Won't Grow. All of the characters in here are great. They all come from different cultural backgrounds and bond over the similarities and differences in their different cultures. The Brave Paw series by Ellen Wilkinson, or Lily Wilkinson, if you know her young adult titles, is absolutely fantastic. It is my favorite kids fantasy chapter book series. It is written for junior fiction leading into your first sort of middle fiction fantasy series, the perfect alternative to that series that shall not be named. This is book 3 and 4, so there is Brave Paw and the Fangstone of Flintfall and Brave Paw and the Songstone of the Deep. Book 4 is the final book in the series, so the series is going to be complete at the start of September. They are just fabulous. We follow Titch, who is a mouse who dreams of being the hero Brave Paw from Legends, and when it turns out that she's chosen to actually take on that mantle and to fight a great evil that is coming into the world, she is faced with understanding what bravery and courage is. Great characters, great story. My class have begged me to read the entire series this year. We're halfway through the final book and they are obsessed. Moving into some middle fiction titles, specifically there is Laughter is the Best Ending by Miriam Master, which is a contemporary story about a group of kids who are on a camp. It is full of hilarious hijinks. The Wondrous Tale of Lavender Wolf is more of a magical fantasy story about a girl who is racing against time on a cursed ship, and it is a lot of fun. It is a longer title though, so it is probably for those middle fiction readers who like a longer, chunkier text. Brightest Wild by Tanya Crampton Larking is an Indigenous text. Again, contemporary story, really, really wonderful read. Ruby's Web by Ellen Van Nerven, also an Indigenous text or First Nations text. This one looks at online bullying in a school and is both really topical and very well crafted. It's also relatively short. The Wild Unknown by Emily Gale is kind of I don't want to say post-dystopian, it's a futuristic book about what the world might look like when AI has a significant hold on the world. Set in Australia, really great. The Rebound by Fiona Harris is about a boy who has dreams of playing basketball or getting into a top-rated basketball team at his school. And then misses his chance when his father passes away, and he's obviously dealing with that grief, and then how he comes back from that. A lot of life lessons in there, particularly around sport and teammates and what it means to be a team player. Then you have Shakespeare in the Orchard by Daniel Binks, which is a historical fiction set during World War II, following a boy who lives on a farm, who lives on an apple orchard, and the local garrison begins to host German prisoners of war, and those Germans then come and work on the local farms, and he has to confront what he understands of the war, but also the Australian-born Germans living in Australia. It also includes a lot of Shakespeare, as the title would suggest, as they put on a performance of Hamlet to pass the time. Then there is Run by Sarah Armstrong, which is a survival story about a boy who runs away from home, ends up in the Australian bush, and meets up with a family that are living off-grid, and finding out that even though he's on the run, other people might be on the run too. Then we have some young adult fiction. There is Prince of Fortune by Lisa Torreno, which is a queer fantasy story. This is great. I listened to the audiobook for this one. There is The Setup Girl by Sasha Bay, which is a contemporary young adult story with romance and friendship, and it is honestly delightful. It was a notable book this year for the Children's Book Council Awards. There is Drift by Pip Harry, which is a verse novel. Incredible. I absolutely love this one, about finding yourself in a new place, having to rebuild your life after a big move, found family, and beekeeping, which I have a soft spot for books about bees. This season's draft by Jason Gent is a book. This is actually a really interesting book. I remember when I first talked about it, we have, I think it's 5 characters. We get stories from each of them, and there's 4 boys and 1 girl that are telling the story. And each story builds on the previous one, as the boys are applying for the football draft and what happens through the course of the year to change their pathway. Really interesting. Once a Villain is the final book in the Only a Monster series by Vanessa Len. Really interesting trilogy, which involves time slips and monsters, because our characters are able to take the life force of other people and use it to transport themselves forwards and backwards in time. I won't say much about the third book because it's the third book in a series, but I absolutely loved this third book. It was really cool. And another third book in a trilogy, All Shall Mourn by Ellie Marnie, which is the conclusion to the None Shall Sleep trilogy. There is, I haven't included this book in here. All Shall Mourn concludes this, the first trilogy, which is about 2 young adults who work for the FBI, who have been trying to track down a serial killer called Simon Noon. I don't want to say too much about this book because Simon also gets a follow-up book, which I will add into this presentation because it is also excellent. Red Star Rebels by Amy Kaufman is a sci-fi young adult story with a little bit of romance set on Mars. Really fun and a really fast-paced book. Ngara Home by Carl Merrison and Heikia Hustler is the third book in a series that started with Black Cockatoo, and it is about an Indigenous girl who's grown up on the west coast of Australia, and she has spent quite a lot of time away from home, and it's about her connection to culture and to country and the friendships that she faces, as well as, in this particular book, looking at the impact of mining in Western Australia. So very, very powerful book. Good Young Men by Gary Lonsborough is a queer Indigenous title and is incredibly well written. Gary Lonsborough's books are some of my favorite young adult books to see come out. There has not been one that I haven't read, loved, and potentially cried my way through. Moving into some adult romance titles, I've tried to group authors together, so you're going to see chunks of authors in big sections. So starting off with N.R. Walker, there's Point of No Return, which is which is a contemporary romance and has a mystery element to it. One of our main characters is a police detective. Then we have the HRS series, which is Code Red, Code Blue, and Code Word by N.R. Walker, which are rockstar romances. And then Best of Both Worlds by N.R. Walker, which is another queer short contemporary story. There is The Team, which is the third book. Oh, I'm forgetting my numbers. Anyway, it is a queer romantic suspense series about a group of special force trained individuals. And there's a lot of hijinks that ensue. It's one of my favorite of N.R. Walker series. Under the Surface is book 1 in the Tenebrae Cove series, which is a paranormal series featuring aquatic shifter individuals that live on an isolated island in Tasmania. Very fascinating series. Getting Friendly by Saxon James, which is part of the Never Just Friends series. These are all contemporary romances that are kind of friends to lovers stories. Also by Saxon James, I read through the Frat Wars series, which is a college-based series following guys that live in different frat houses and kind of the hijinks that ensue as the different frat houses prank each other constantly. There is the Wild Men series by Saxon James, which is Wild's End and Ziggy's Voice. So far, the third book is on its way, I believe. And these are set in kind of an abandoned town. We have a couple of brothers who are trying to flip a town in order to make a profit from it. And they discover that there are people who are living in the woods that surround this town who are very unhappy that they're there. And then Home Ice is a queer hockey romance by Saxon James. It's not one of the co-writes, but it is equally delightful and a really fun time. Then we have Eden Finley and Saxon James's co-writes that I've read in the last 12 months. There was Money Shot, which is a contemporary romance that is extremely steamy and a really fun time. One of the main characters is a camboy and is hilarious, genuinely hilarious. We have Stubborn Puckboy, and also I forgot to put in here book 10, which are the final two books in the Puckboys series, and Idiots to Lovers, NHL Players. If you want something that will just make you laugh and bring you joy, this is the series to read. I also read through Eden Finley's Mike Bravo series. So there is a Mike Bravo Ops Duet, which is Angel and Domino, which are two novellas about side characters from the series. Very fun, which ironically I read before I read the Mike Bravo series, which feature Iris, Rogue, Atlas, Zeus, and Hazard. These are romantic suspense stories about former special forces, military individuals who have gone on to create a security company and kind of the hijinks that ensue. We have Louisa Masters, who also writes romance. There's Mr. Romance, which is a contemporary romance story, and Batting Style. Both of these link together. They're part of Franklin New universe. She has a paranormal series called Elf Magic, which includes Enticing the Elf and Falling for the Feelid, which are books 2 and 3 in the series. She has a short Christmas paranormal novella called Festive with a Grumpy Fae, which is delightful. And one of her more recent contemporary series is the Style Me series, which features Rebrand, which is a novella, and Couture, which is the first book in the series about characters working in the fashion world. I also started going into some of her backlist. So there's I've Got This, which is book 1 in the Joy universe, Out of the Office, which is a standalone novella, and Charming Him, which is part of the His Match series. All of them are very easy reads, and I just enjoy having them sitting there in the background that I can pick up and read whenever I feel like I want to read something light. I also completed Becca Jackson's Love in Play series, which features Totally Ducked, Totally Geeked, Totally Opposed, Totally Fanatic, Totally Played, and Totally Blitzed. These are based around banana ball players and are very funny and fun. My favorite in the series is the first book, which features a character who hides rubber ducks everywhere, and I just think that is hilarious. There is Puckshots and Mr. Trick Play, which is her venture into hockey romance, and characters from both these books are linked in with characters from the Love and Play series. Some of them are brothers, some of them are friends who went to college together, etc. They all link in and are a really fun, light, easy time. They're similar in tone to Eden Finley and Saxon James. So if you like them, you'll probably like Becca Jackson. Then we have Emma Mugglestone. So the first one in the long run is her traditionally published novel, which is a contemporary romance about two people who meet while training for a marathon. Then you have The Beginning of Us, which is the third book in the Wattle Junction series, and these are contemporary romances set in a small Victorian town and are utterly delightful. Devon May, ironically, is a friend of Emma Mugglestone. This is Because of Her, which is the first book in her Because of Love series. It's a contemporary romance series. We have Evie Mitchell, who you guys know I love and adore. She is just a delightful human being. I did start the Stoneheart MC series, which she's co-writing with Megan Wade, and I need to get back to it. Heart of Stone is the first book, and this is not super dark MC romance, so it is right up my alley, and it probably needs to go on my series to read list for 2027 to make sure I catch up, because apparently there's a season 2 and I'm only one book in, and I feel a bit bad about that. There is Evie's Shadow Mist Pack series, Feral Fates and Savage Bonds, which is her venture into a more paranormal style of series, and this one does get quite dark, but I had a good time with it. And then there is Evie's contribution to the Bright Hunt series, which is a co-write trilogy. Her book was The Maiden. This is the competition world where women from around the universe are selected and thrown into a bride hunt competition, and they have to fight to survive. If they are claimed by someone in the world, then they become the possession of the person who has claimed them. If they reach kind of the end of the maze without being claimed, then they are free to go. So there is The Maiden, The Queen, and The Huntress, and you can kind of read any of the 3 books in order. So The Queen is by Lana Perchek. Beck McMaster wrote The Huntress. Interestingly enough, in this series, I actually think I liked The Queen. There is a quiz that you can do to see which book to start with, because you can kind of start with any of the books in the series. and I did get The Maiden. But when I think about the books, I actually really liked The Queen, probably the best out of the three. I don't know, the story just worked for me. Then we have House of Omega by Roxy Collins, which is an Omegaverse story that I absolutely loved, and I tried completely randomly because I bought a special edition of the book because I'm easily swayed by pretty book covers and artwork. But I found this one utterly delightful, and I would like to come back to it and that series. Then we have Carly Lane's Rumour Has It, which is a small town rural romance. These are closed door romances, so be mindful of that, but really great sort of afternoon reads. Ghosted by Amy Sutton, which is about two people who are investigating a haunted house. I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. After the Siren by Darcy Green is a queer AFL romance. AFL is the Australian Football League here in Australia. It's quite popular in my home state. And this was great. I hate to use the if you like heated rivalry, you will like this series, this book kind of thing, because I don't think everything needs to be compared to heated rivalry, but it is for that audience and really well done and probably a little bit lighter than heated rivalry. So highly recommend this if you are at all interested in Australian sports. There is Escape Velocity by Jess Anastasi, which is part of the Valiant Knox series. It's a sci-fi romance. The Floral Arrangement by Elizabeth Lully, which is a sapphic romance, part of her small town romance series. There's 3 books in it. This is the 3rd one that I've read. We have In Spite of You by Patrick Lenton, which is a queer contemporary romance about moving on from some very unfortunate circumstances. I was very pleasantly surprised by this book, and I had a great time with it. And then there's A Study in Sparkling by Jodie McAllister, which is the follow-up to An Academic Affair. This one we have a wine bar owner and a now divorced single mum who loves to frequent his bar, and the two of them really, really like one another, and there's a lot of complications in their relationship, including burnout and trying to manage and balance a life that has completely changed. Really, really great. Bit heavier than An Academic Affair if you've read that, but highly recommend both those books. Alrighty, so then some adult fiction titles. Miss Caroline Bingley, Private Detective by Kelly Gardner and Shamini Kumar is the story for anyone who likes Jane Austen but wants to know a little bit more about maybe what Caroline Bingley's life is like after the events of Pride and Prejudice. Really fun story. Then there is Click by Sarah Bailey, which is a Australian crime story. Really interesting because we have the perspective of a independent reporter and someone who is working for the police force around a murder and missing women, which also is very timely in Australia because there's a lot of conversations around women being killed frequently here. There is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, which is, I suppose, more of a literary mystery. It was a very popular book last year. Everyone was talking about it and I was kind of skeptical about it, but I really enjoyed this. I listened to the audiobook. It is about a family who are living on a remote island off the coast of Australia. They are in charge of caring for a seed bank. It is a single father and his children. We know his wife has passed away. His children are not quite happy to be on the island. He has obviously come there to escape his feelings. But then a woman washes up on the shore and we begin to learn a little bit more about the station, the people who used to work there, the fact that someone is supposedly missing and this woman may or may not be who she says she is. Really interesting Australian book. No One is Safe by Ellie Marnie, which is a follow on from the None Shall Sleep trilogy, which is YA. No One is Safe is an adult title. In this one, we have Simon, who has woken up, doesn't really remember his life, and is trying to rebuild his life. And he ends up getting caught up with one of his apartment neighbors who happens to run her own private detective business. She's barely making ends meet at the moment. She's a former police officer, and she begins to notice really weird things happening with Simon. And if you know, you know, it is such a great mystery thriller kind of book. And there is another book coming out really soon. Every time I talk to Ellie about her books, because she's one of my favorite authors, and she's one of the people who, for some reason, even though I hadn't seen her for many years in person, she remembered exactly who I was, and we had a conversation for half an hour. I've talked about this in another video, but she's utterly fantastic at creating atmospheric thriller stories, so I highly recommend. Then we have some nonfiction and poetry. Most of this nonfiction, in fact, all of this nonfiction is middle and young adult fiction, nonfiction. There's A Prawn in Parliament House, The Kid's Guide to Australia's Amazing Democracy by Annabelle Crabb. I keep saying to people, I cannot believe that I would recommend a book about politics in Australia, but this book is fantastic if you want to know anything to do with Australian politics and how our political system works. This is the book to read. It is hilarious. There is Ningaloo, Australia's Wild Wonder by Tim Winton. And while I don't normally include picture books in this kind of recommendation video, this one I couldn't not include because it is absolutely stunning. It is about Ningaloo, which is a region off the northwestern coast of Western Australia. It is absolutely beautiful. It is the one place in Australia that I would give anything to go and visit. I would drop anything to go there because it seems absolutely magical. But I also don't want to be one of those people that goes there and ruins a beautiful ecosystem. So at the moment, I'm content to read and watch things about it because it is a stunning, stunning place. The Universal Guide to the Night Sky by Lisa Harvey Smith, which is a book about the southern sky, which is really important because so many space books for kids are about the northern sky and we are in the south. So we need these. And then not a nonfiction book, but a poetry anthology, Beautiful Changelings by Maxine Benova Clark. Incredible poet, incredible writer. This is a great collection. And then finally, I have some First Nations, which are Australian Indigenous titles. I use First Nations just to be kind of a bit more encompassing in case we're including Torres Strait Islander authors in here. But when I say First Nations, I mean utmost respect to all Indigenous, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander individuals. There is Love Unleashed by Melanie Sayward, which was promoted as a romance. I think it's more of a contemporary fiction story. There is some bi-rep in here. It's about an Indigenous woman who heads over to the US to find work and love, and things get messy and complicated. It does involve a lot of cute dogs though, so that's always a bonus. I Am Nana Tuguruk by Tasma Walton, and I apologize if I've butchered that, is Tasma Walton writing about the story of one of her ancestors who came from sea country. It is incredibly hard-hitting. There are a lot of content warnings for this one, but incredibly written. And the audiobook is excellent. Dreaming in the Urban Areas by Lisa Balier is a First Nations poetry collection. False Claims of Colonial Thieves by Charmaine Papertalk Green and John Kinsella is also a poetry collection. This one is interesting because it is a kind of conversation between the two authors writing in response to one another. Very fascinating. And then Stan Grant's Australia Day and Moriong's Song of Time. Stan Grant is an incredible writer. He was a reporter for many years. He has some really great perspectives on a lot of things. Australia Day is his reflection on Australia Day and the fact that this is a really complex conversation that we need to have around it. It's also not complex, but there's a lot of moving parts to the conversation, particularly if we're looking towards reconciliation and to reckoning with Australia's history. And then Moriong's Song of Time is a reflection on the life of his father and his connection to his father and his life, and just Stan Grant's life as well and his connection to his faith and religion. Yeah, really interesting books to read. And so that is a collection of books. So hopefully there are some recommendations in there, some books that you're interested in picking up, or if you've heard me talk about them before, it's a reminder of them. As always, I have reviews for pretty much all of these books in videos. If you do a search on my channel, because I always put the book titles in the description, the video that you need should come up. Fingers crossed, and hopefully that works for you. Yeah, in the comments, I'd love to know, are there any of these books that you've picked up because I have talked about them before? I'd love to know if you have picked them up, or are there books that you're interested in picking up now? Feel free to share that down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.